Hey guys, Chris, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a ranking of all the Aikatsu openings. Ranking the openings is hard because they're all used as insert songs, which makes it hard for me to judge them as openings. A good song will help, but I'll try to minimize that bias. With that said, let's get right into it. The first entry on this list had balloons, a camera, and a dream. In last place, it's... The first half of this is really hampered by being live action. It's not very fun and the girls can't run too much because the camera's slow. It's a little bad. I'm a planet defender, so let's see what we can salvage. The balloon start is cute if random, and the solo scenes don't really let the girls act, instead opting for these icons as they hold up props. Having them hold props leaves their faces to carry the scene. Mace is the first to get any real story or characterization as she looks at the plane, implying she's gone somewhere. The mirror in scene is great because it finally transitions us into CG. The dance sequences have never looked this good. I think that the transition's cool, but that's about it. There's just characters and swings and props. It doesn't teach you anything, it doesn't tell you anything. The ending is way better, but next time, if the franchise survives, I hope the girls can act a bit in the live action section. Right above last, we've got Akari-gen seems to struggle with OPs, so this one's got its own narrative. They're planning the headmaster's birthday. Lumina start the planning and call the other girls, giving us the door shots. This quickly shows us some key relationships, which is convenient because some of them are actually roommates. Ran and Sakura make no sense, but Jiri being alone fits since she is the closest to Hinaki, who is a part of the Luminous shot. They all reach for number 1, just like they're all aiming for the top. Ren and Madoka's dynamic is playful, and there's 2 new men in the school. The highlight of this OP for me is the glamour shots that everyone gets in these beautiful frames. They each use their aura behind them, but it's so fitting. Ren's serious with disco stars, Madoka smiles with beautiful hearts, and Judy's got roses. It's also a subtle way to put vanilla chili pepper together without telling us. Hinaki's super cute, Sumida's graceful, and Akari makes a heart. Forgive me, but it seems like they didn't really know what to do with these 3. You'll see it more in the other openings, but the Akari-gen openings are definitely some of the worst ones. It's a cute story, not exactly interesting, but you know, it's something. In 14th place, we've got an opening from when I started to lose faith in the franchise. This opening genuinely feels like a checklist. The characters just slide into place, and it's not much more than a highlight reel for the girls. It's got a catchy and refreshing start with Aina tapping to the beat, but from there none of that energy is carried over. It's mostly just stills of our new girls. To be fair, the stills do convey some personality, but there's shots that just feel like filler. I really do wish it did more because I had high hopes. For doing nothing and feeling rather unrefreshing, I'm gonna leave this one near the bottom. In 13th place, we've got a bright number that started off a new generation. This song is a really fun bop with boundless energy. I really like the start and the running shots. It just feels fun, and now to even get to cameo. The introductions are a bit weaker, but there's still meaning in the shots. For example, Sakura dancing under the moon teases her Starlight Queen aspirations. Additionally, Akari's struggle with schoolwork is here. The girls don't really get much outside of Judy and Miyabi, who get their own dedicated shots. Hinaki and Sumida are stuck doing peace signs, but I guess we had time for Soleil to look around a bit. Senna Akari ship tease is present. Yeah, I don't like this one. I feel it's incredibly weak. See, while the first opening in Aikatsu didn't give Ran and Aoi much. I feel like for introducing a new generation, this really does nothing. It's just very cheerful. Hinaki does get a shot looking at cards, which could hint at her being a model, but it's just a good song with nice animation. I don't actually like it that much, and I don't think it's a great opening at all. So let's move on. In 12th place, we've got a season that fans of the channel know I love to talk about. Now, Stars was a little special, so we got 3 OPs. What does this middle one offer? Let's find out. This is Laura's OP through and through, and I can't help but see it any other way. She gets the most screen time, and the song itself is her solo, so I just associate it with her. We start with her and Yume drawing attention to a certain someone's absence. As Laura skips and Yume trains, we cut to Koharu all the way in Italy. It's not obvious at first until you see her look off that she's not with the other girls. Ako swoons over Subaru and a new mysterious girl wanders through the snow. For a second OP, I think it does some good stuff, introducing a few plot lines and showing off a new character, but the rest of it is basically glamour shots of the girls' chords. I don't mind, and I really do love it, but it's just not good enough to go higher than 12. I think from this point onwards, I really like all the openings coming after, whereas the ones before, I was pretty negative toward. In 11th place, we have an opening that concludes a season, so let's see how it does that. Starjet is probably the opening that I really loved when it came out. It's incredible at ending the season because it just shows us where everyone is and communicates relationships in a really fast way. Firstly, all our girls are together and we start with a group scene where they're shopping. Everyone's energy is readable and the scene is fun. Yume going clothes shopping with her bestie Laura and the girls' reactions show us just how close they are as well as how they behave. It's an easy and fast way to show that they're friends and display their personalities. I especially love how Mahiru doesn't flinch until she sees the one. Aku looks exasperated and Laura throws up her arms too. Yume's poses are all excellent too, and overall, this opening scene packs a bunch of character in. The rest of the opening basically highlights that some of the series' conflicts have been resolved. Yozora and her sister get along now, and the new character Lily, introduced in the previous opening, is good friends with Yuzu. As Yume falls from the sky, she lands in Subaru's arms, because they are love interests in this series that decided we needed boys. But it's a really nice ending to the season, so I'm giving it 11th place. It just barely made it into the top 10. We finally made it to the top 10, and we're gonna start with the opening that left us all wondering if this franchise was about to end. So here we are, the final opening of Friends. I really love this song and it moves me so much, so let's see how the visuals fare. We start with 7 jewels flying off in these beautiful cuts. It's a very pretty way to start. Now after the logo, we swiftly establish the time skip. The girls are in high school, and Reflect Moon has joined Star Harmony. We then immediately move on to our new conflict, Hibiki and Alicia. The reaching out makes it clear that's what this conflict is about. We establish all these details relatively fast, moving from one to the other. After this, it's back to generic training, but I do like the fact that Honeycat and Reflect Moon are off together, while Love Me Tears with Wakaba. If I could call this one thing, I'd say it's rushed, but surprisingly effective. Season 2 of Friends is very thin on plot, so I didn't expect much, but it does its job really well as an OP. As much as I thought that this would rank low, I'm surprised because it's a really good opening for what the season is. It gives you a quick summary of the changes and shows you what it's going to be about. So I think it's the best opening to start the top 10. In ninth place, we've got a song that ended a very important era in Aikatsu. This is the first song I don't like that much. The rock guitar in the background feels like an ode to Sato's presence, but I'm probably reaching there. Overall, the opening draws relationships as the shining line wraps around them. Johnny's got some great sakuga in most of these OPs, so someone on the team probably really liked him. Importantly, this is the last opening for Ichigo's generation. As a send-off, I think it's fittingly somber. I wouldn't call it too sad, but it's just calmer than the other openings. Now, the visuals. Ichigo's first shot is sweet and sentimental, as are the other girls just living day to day. It shows how comfortable and casual their interactions have become. The line shots are creative, as are the duos shown. It gets the four new girls on screen fast, while also showing their friendships off. Mikuru's introduction is eye-catching, but it's not exactly great, it's just she's here now. The remaining time does show us some really important stuff though. We get to meet Akari, who idolizes Ichigo in this one shot, plus a clever Two Wings tease when combined with the flashes of their brand earlier on. For a final OP, I feel it's a good song, but the visuals are just a bit simple. I think that it communicates everything it needs to do, and it does that well enough, but it's just that the rest on this list do that a lot better. In 8th place, we've got an equally important opening that set the standard for a lot of things. As a start, signalizes calm and techno with a rather laid-back pace. We start with a glorious night shot of Starlight Academy, which makes it the most unique start so far. It introduces the characters pretty well too. Ichigo and Aoi are best friends, while Ran is lonely before she meets them. Mizuki is the beautiful moon, and Johnny's our energetic teacher. A small detail here is that Ringo is seen posing with her rice scoop. Given that Ichigo says she turned her rice scoop into a mic, this is a nice little detail for viewers in the know. Outside this, we've got cameos of all the other girls way before they even appear. Ichigo does hog the spotlight with all of these shots, but overall it's a fine start. Given how bad the CGI was, it's no surprise that this opening uses 2D for the dances. Plus, it wasn't an established precedent at the time, and I can imagine why. There's also no chords to be seen beyond cards, so it's pretty mundane overall. Despite that, it is a good first OP, and that's why it's in 8th position. In 7th place, we've got an opening full of warm animation that really gave me a lot of hope when it finally aired. Another new generation that starts off with a warm, bright song. We open with a morning shot with Aina in bed, while Mio staring out a big window. I like that Mio starts dressed up while Aina is still in PJs. Mirrors the different points they started Aikatsu. After some product placement, we get to meet the cast. The cute montage with the warm-ups is fun, while letting them all interact. We get to see Emma's playfulness, Mio's modeling, and love for pen. Momona is here too, by the way. Lastly, Micah's at a festival, and Emma balances her lacrosse stick. In just a few shots, we've established everyone is friends, they all go to the same school, we know their types, and we know at least one thing about them. Aina walks cheerfully through town with the side characters in the back before we see her big family. The school staff appear, and then a fateful encounter brings us into the chorus. It's probably the most organic transition so far. The shot with Love Me Tear is great as it introduces them as larger than life. The parallels between them set up pure palette to fill those big shoes, and the final shot where Aina reaches for the sun embodies their goals. It's a mellow start that gives each of the girls something while clearly spelling out their goals. Additionally, the animation is fluid and the song is great, so it's all the way up at number 7. In 6th place, we've got one of the most iconic and memorable openings of all time. Now this OP finally got it. As the final opening to Aikatsu, they brought their A game. The song builds and builds as it carries you scene to scene before a very fitting ending at night. It ends just like the first OP started. First shots go to the main four finally showing us their talents. See, it was so easy. Anyway, we play catch up with the old cast, which would have been nice last season during the Unit Cup, but it is the final season, so I'll forgive them. We see the World Tour van ride around and a consistent rainbow motif. This one ties back to Luminous and Akari, as she's the first one we see when the sky is clear at the start. The rainbow connects the girls the same way the Shining Line did. The CG chorus is much better than the past ones with great camera work. Nice stuff. Lastly, the two new girls are shafted into a few frames, as we remember this is the Japan tour season. I feel very sentimental about this one. It really does feel like a final OP. It checks all the boxes while giving priority to our main girls at the expense of these secondaries. It doesn't tell you much about the plot, but that's not a huge sin to me. It was carrying the weight of being the final Aikatsu opening, so I don't mind them showing the original girls. It was probably the last time they'd get to put them in an opening. It's a bit of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, especially with the way Nana and Risa are shafted, but I can't tell you how happy I was when I got to see the girls actually doing their jobs. Akari broadcasting, Sumire singing, Hinaki modeling, and Judy acting. It's so simple, but we never saw them do anything even once. So this was a really big one for me. Start dash sensation till I die. In 5th place, we've got a really cheerful song with a great use of abstract backgrounds. This is Diamond Happy is our second OP, and this one brings the energy. Unlike Signalize, it's a lot more chipper and there's just so much fun to be had. There's a lot of character with each girl's personality on full display. Lots of abstract backgrounds for our characters to play in too. Ichigo skips around while Ran models for Raichi. This cut also establishes that he has a crush on her. Aoi chases Otome, who playfully flees, but this also tells us that she's an actor, as these are the chords from stylish thief Swallowtail. Sakura looks pensive, which I imagine is over her brother's disapproval, even though that's just in her debut episode. At least Yurika and Kaede get to show off their gimmicks. A shy girl who pretends she's a vampire, and a magician. Mizuki's stuck being the moon, but I guess someone really liked Johnny because he gets a bunch of Sakuga once again. I think what impresses me about this opening the most is, 1, how energetic all of it is. There's so much animation. And secondly, how much character they pack into each of these scenes. Without wasting much time, I've been able to tell you something about each of the girls, which you know I prioritize at this point in the video. Now, the chorus cut is one of the best pieces of animation the franchise has given us. Everyone's jump is so unique. You could just watch this and fully get the cast. I mean, look, we even see the star Anis tease, and so much care is placed into how everyone moves. It's not easy to do that, and for just how much love was poured into this, I'm putting it in the top 5. At number 4, we have one of the best songs the franchise gave us. This was an incredible time to be a fan. There was so much hype. Things were amazing. What a way to start the season. This opening packs a lot of hype. We open on our new S4 with Laura in a stunning shot as feathers fly by, a new motif for these openings. Venus' arc takes up the screen in a glorious shot, imposing and bright. The newest girl, Elsa, turns to face Kirara, who's full of energy while Rei reads Aikatsu's style in the background. This edition features Mahiru. If you've been paying attention, the first one is Yozora. Continuity aside, this also alludes to Rei's past as a model before Venus' arc. The regal tea set suits Elsa, as does the glorious red dress she dons. The shot of the wings in place is probably the best use of cards in all the openings so far. She grabs on with poise and confidence as the season's new gimmick is revealed. The glorious cut combined with timing makes it an impeccable scene to witness. Now we play catch up with the old S4 as Yozora's in France, Tsubasa and Hime are out of the picture. and Yuzu is still here. This scene gives us a little glimpse of the cord Lily's designing for her new PR. It's cute to have Yuzu surprise her with flowers, they're so cute together. Finally, the group has gathered, and Koharu is back. They kinda just shoved her back in, but I guess she didn't need all that much attention. Yume calls Laura to meet, just like Laura called her in the first opening for the first season. I might be reaching, but it's a smart parallel that could clue you into Koharu's return. The girls embrace their friend and end with a showdown against Elsa Fort. This one shot is so good, it was the perfect frame to end on. It's a masterpiece, it introduces the new girls, the new mechanics, but it doesn't tell us much about the ones that are already here. Most of the OP is dedicated to Venus Arc. Song bias aside, I think it's earned its position. Now that we're in the top 3, I feel it's time for an honorable mention that didn't really feel fair to rank. This is one of the OPs I've had stuck in my head since the season aired. It's so catchy and fun. Given that it's an all-star season, I don't think it's fair to give it a rank, but let's go over it. She starts by sketching a PR, which is her goal, and the ribbon turning into the logo is smart. I like that she travels through the worlds in reverse. First we meet Honeycat with Emma's lacrosse stick, then we get to 4-star as Yuma leads her off, and then she stumbles into Yuzu from a bush, landing on Venus Arc. It's a creative transition. In the original world, Akari leads her to Ichigo who's waiting like some final boss. The chorus kicks in, and I'm sad that we never got this trio performance. The cards shooting through the sky scene is really epic, and I like that they all hold hands, kinda like a shining line connecting them. The final shot's meh, but for this season it passes. Part of me wishes the Dream Story had its own opening, but then I remember how short it was, and I realize I'm just fine. We're finally in the top 3, and our first entry is one of the catchiest songs to open a season with. Now I'll be the first to admit there might be some song bias here, but it's just a really good, catchy opening. The techno's back with all the energy of a new season. The playful riffs sound amazing and the beat is infectious. On to the visuals. There's a clear improvement in animation, and with more characters, I do wonder how they're going to distribute the screen time. We start in Ichigo's room with some product placement, but quickly get to introducing characters. The opening introduces Ichigo and Seira by showing their restaurants, their bows, and then the girls themselves. This draws parallels between them and primes us to think of them together. When they perform in CG for the chorus, their bond is only made stronger. A sweeping shot past Dream Academy brings us our new characters. In precious seconds, we get a grasp of each of them. Key is smart, Sora is a designer, and Maria is graceful. Another shot later speeds past our original girls and refreshes us with their main personality trait. It's also economic that we get side characters and glamour shots for Ichigo. Hell, Mizuki's in this too for a blink and you'll miss it second, explaining her absence after Season 1's finale. For doing all this in such little time, I have to commend them. It's exactly what viewers need for a new season. Emphasis is given to the new girls, connections are established, and old characters are briefly introduced. In second place, we've got another song I don't like, but upon rewatch, I had to admit it's a pretty good OP. This is the final opening of Stars, concluding the series, and it sounds like it. We open with our 5 girls facing the rising sun before cutting to Venus Arc's full cast. Rei's fencing as Kirara and Arya watch. Elsa sitting with a teacup, exuding power as she looks at the camera. I also like that she's the only one sitting, as generally in a lot of situations the person with the most power sits down while the rest of you stand up. Yuma watches her past self as we realize just how far she's come. She looks up at a solitary star as we move on to the star wings. The cards glide as Yuma stares at the moon before Elsa awakens the sundress. She's faced by Yuma right before the chorus. Honestly, the visual themes of stars have been covered before, but Elsa looks so imposing here. The latter half gives the remaining cast their time, So let's cover that. Aria is a floral fairy girl with ties to both Yume and Hime. Mahiru's in France with Yozora, and the magazine now shows both of them. It's consistently been changing, which I appreciate. Tsubasa is with Laura, and they share the shot with Akko. Given that she's been an influence in both of their life, it makes sense to group them together. Truthfully, it's a way better final OP than all the rest. It ties together the cast in ways previous entries struggled to, while giving us a clear narrative. Character introductions for the latter two cast members feel organic, and the showdown between Yuma and Elsa takes priority. It's very focused. I never expected this to be this high, given my meh feelings toward the song, but it's a really good opening, and it does almost everything right. It took us a while, but we're finally here. It's time for us to finish this ranking with a start. It's an all-new show with an all-new cast. Coming right after the original series, this opening needed to sell us on the new direction, and it did that excellently. On a vocal and presentation level, this is an incredible opening, and we're going to go into great detail to explain why it's the best out of all of these. The opening starts with Yume holding a star, where she's joined by Koharu and Laura. Just by their body language, the show establishes everyone's character. That's a huge advantage of such fluid animation, and we'll need it because there's a bunch of characters this season. Koharu leans over to Yume and keeps to her own space, while Laura saunters into frame with confidence. The table scene establishes that Laura and Yume are friends as they call each other, but we also see that Yume's got a really embarrassing picture of Laura as the call comes in. Koharu's holding a copy of Aikatsu style with Yozora, who she really admires. There's a bit of head bobbing as they show off the hair animation, but it's a surprising amount of detail to pack into such precious seconds. Mahiru gracefully glides past the camera, but when Akko tries the same, she just ends up embarrassed, which is foreshadowing for how the show will treat her. Okay, but seriously, she's a cat girl, and she just acts like this. Anna introduces us to the teachers with her rockin' spirit, and the poses give them just enough character to justify being a few frames before our rose-twirling villain, the principal. His menacing presence over this school is something new, as we usually don't get dramatic shots like this. It's a new way to repurpose the night scenes that we're used to from the original series openings. This group shot highlights Yume and Koharu's friendship while showing off Akko's tsundere tendencies. The S4 group shot shows off Yuzu's energy, Tsubasa's seriousness, Yozora's grace, and Hime is shown last rallying them, which gives her prominence. I will admit that the Hime frame is a bit strange, as are some of the other frames she's gotten, but I guess they didn't know how to convey more than she's graceful and important. I'll forgive them. What an introduction. I'll forgive them. Maybe that's my star's bias. Right before the CG performance, we see the rainbow eye flash, hinting at Yume's mysterious powers. And lastly, we watch her run to the S4, her goal. What an introduction. You guys can see why I think it's the best season, right? We didn't even talk about the quick introduction of M4 and ship teas, but watching this, you could tell me so much. This is the kind of opening you can sink your teeth into and really analyze, the kind of opening that tells you stuff about the characters, hints at the story, their relationships. It's got everything I love in spades. It's a shame we don't get openings like this more often. If Aikatsu ever does go back to being animated, I pray that we get an opening on this level. With that said, we've come to the end of the ranking. Tell me what your favorite openings are, and if you disagree, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the openings I dislike, or your disdain for the openings I ranked really highly. I had no idea this was going to be this long. There's a bunch of stuff I couldn't bring up, like the smaller narratives in openings such as Friends and Stars. They did that really well. I'll see you guys next time for a big project that I've been working on, but I will tease it on my community post, so you should check that out. But with that said, I'll see you guys next time.